We're Ashley and Sabrina,
your co-host for Ruck Up Buttercup podcast.
Military life can be challenging,
but also has its advantages.
Come and be part of the unfiltered
and sometimes unhinged conversations with fellow military spouses, Kayla and Laura, as we dive into the occasional rant
and rave of military life.
Share the stories that make us who we are,
and showcase the amazing organizations
and resources out there that make our lives a little bit better.
Whether you're new
or a seasoned military family,
we all need a little extra love.
So, Ruck Up Buttercup, we got your six.
You can also hear us on Wreath Across America Radio on Women in Media Wednesdays at 11 p.m. See you there. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Ruck Up Buttercup. We have a really fun guest with us, a new nonprofit in the military world, so we're hoping to get her name out to you guys so you guys can start using the amazing grants and stuff that they are going to have available soon. We have Chelsea with Family in Flight. Chelsea, do you want to kind of just get us started telling us a little bit about what your mission is and what you guys are trying to do?
Yeah, so my name is Chelsea and I am the founder of Family in Flight. And I started this because my husband is currently Air Force and we've been together for several years, and we knew way back when we first started that whenever he PCS next, I would not be able to go. And I have kids in Florida and he had to go, we found out he went to Mississippi. So one of the times I was driving back and forth to Mississippi, which is 10 hours of a drive or a flight, just all the travel, I was really mad and was like, there are no resources. I have been doing this every other week for the last, I think at that point, 2.5 years. And I was over it. And I was on the phone with my girlfriend just kind of venting and was just really mad that I couldn't find anybody else in my position or find any support, or whether it was emotional or financial, I was just like, I cannot be alone. So later that night after, the drive, I kind of pieced together what I thought maybe I could do to help support. And that's sort of how we started. And so for us, Family in Flight is an organization that helps emotionally and financially support spouses of military members who are Geo Batching, which is, living states apart, not being able to be at the same base, and it's for so many reasons. Mine is a family reason. I have my kids here, their life is here, school, family, everybody. But that's not always the case. A lot of times it's medical needs, or it's, job requirements of spouses, like licensing and things like that. So there's all these different reasons. And the more I dug into it, the more I realized I think it was 4%. Last time I looked, 4% of military members are currently Geo Batching.
Wow, that's a big number.
I know. And that's what I said. I said, if you really break it down, for how many people are in the military, 4% seems huge. And so I decided I was going to start a nonprofit, and here we are.
Well, and you're saying that is such a hard decision to come to decide that you're going to Geo Batch, because it is separating your family, separating your life across the country. And I don't think a lot of people realize that is not always a choice. Like you're saying, sometimes that medically they have to go to a certain duty station, and EFMP is like, no, I don't think your family can go. So they have to make the decision of hey, do we pick up a worse duty station, or do I go do this job that's actually going to help my career and you guys stay here? And that is such a hard choice.
I mean, and just even the courses that are just not even a full year long, and then a lot of families do make that choice of doing, well, you're only going to be there 9-10 months. There's no reason to uproot the kids when we know we're going to move again right after that. For instance, the Sergeant Major's Academy is a really big one where a lot of families will choose to make that choice of staying where they're currently at so that the kids can stay in one spot. And I mean, I personally was uprooted and then was sent to every single time. So I get that, I get where families want to have that time where they have to make that hard choices. I've always said that I wouldn't do that to my kids, but then at the same time, it's just going to have that conversation of, what is best with our family at this time. I wish my I mean, we lived overseas though, so like it wasn't a choice. Like we couldn't stay
Mm-hmm.
overseas. We had to move with them back stateside, even though we went right back overseas right after that. So we went from Germany to Texas for 10 months, back to Germany.
Oh my gosh.
And then went to an installation that closed that year as well. So then we had to leave again.
Oh
So like
no.
those things do happen, and that's not the norm. I will definitely say
Yeah.
my experience as a military kid wasn't normal. Like I feel like it's a little bit different, but there are a lot of people who have gone through the similar things as me. And or, my husband grew up military and they chose to geo batch for most of my husband's middle school and high school careers because they had just bought a house. My mother-in-law had a really good paying job. And they're just like, well, we just bought this house. Like, and the kids are in school. Like, how about you go? And then he went, and then it just ended up being like, my father-in-law ended up geo batching for the remainder of his career just because like he came back and then they had like 2 years left of high school. And then
Yeah, I
like,
think I was gonna say when your kids get older, I think that this is where this really kind of comes into play. Is I think a lot of
Yeah.
families that have older kids end
yep.
up geo-batching because your kids do end up really, really enjoying their high school career, or you just really like that school because it's good. And so then you're like, we're just gonna stay here and finish high school with the kids, and then we'll catch back up wherever that lands afterwards.
Well, and when you think about it, I mean, because like one of my things is like I probably could have gotten a full ride scholarship for softball if I didn't move around as much as I did. But because I moved every single year and had to meet new coaches and had to prove my worth every single year, like by the time I was a senior, I was like, forget it. Like, I'm not even interested. I played varsity every single year that I played, but I was at the point where I was just like, I'm so tired of like proving myself, proving that I had the experience, proving that I had the talent, that I was just like, I don't even want to play. Like, I was like, I don't even want to play anymore. Like, and I didn't even play my senior year. I was like, I opt to have a surgery that I needed to have done during that time. I had started off with the coaching, like the coach had taught a course at the school. So I did try to get in good graces before the actual season. But then I was just like, I just don't even want to. Like, I don't want to be someone who's sitting on the bench because I'm a new person. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of families do stay, because they have kids who are in sports or who are doing things academically that, they probably won't get to do in another place.
And I think we're going to see more of it too, because we've had girlfriends on here, like military girlfriends, and the generation that is coming into the military world is different from what our generation was when we were young. And they're not in the mood to get married just to follow their spouse. They're like, hey, my career is also important. So we will date, we will whatever. We're not in the rush. We've even had some that are like, said, we may not ever get married because I'm going to continue my career and I will follow if I feel like it. And so I think there's going to be a lot more of that geo batching, that like they're putting themselves first as well, which
especially for those who are not going to be career service members. Like if you have a service member who's only going to do 4, maybe 8 years, having those conversations and choosing, because I mean, 4 and 8 years seems like a long time, but in retrospect, it really isn't that long of a time. And so you will have a lot of families who are just like, you're going to be at this duty station, you're within driving distance, we're going to geo batch, or we're going to move home where we have support system and you can go all to those places. I definitely agree with you. I think there's going to be a lot more geo batching, and hopefully they don't do something really crazy and drastic with the policies about allowing that, because we're already seeing some major changes happening for military families, and so that would be I hope they don't restrict it to just like medical needs or anything like that, like stays where it's open for other families.
Well, and I think you guys bring up a good point. Like, it's those conversations to be had too. Like when you are in the dating phase and when you are, talking about this life of like, what do you want? Like that's, I think, where it helped my husband and I mentally prepare for this journey. Like we had to do this, or we're still in it. We still have 2.5 years left. So by the time it's all said and done, it's a total of 5 years apart. And it's 5 years of travel, 5 years of back and forth, 5 years of kids being apart, but we went into it knowing this is what we have to do. Like there wasn't another option for us. And if we wanted to be together, like that was it. And so I think it's super important for the people who are in these positions to have those conversations and know that there is support, that I mean, our local base, you end up, becoming part of your local base wherever your service member is, but they still have such great, options for people and support, and finding those groups and those core friends to like help you through these times is what really saves the relationship and the geo batching and, kids, and making it intentional too, I think has also been important. It's not, luckily I have a career that's flexible, but I think if I wasn't seeing him as often as I was, I think it would be way tougher. Those people who go months without seeing him, it's a deployment without a deployment,
Yeah,
which,
without the benefits.
Mhm. Like, everyone compares it to a deployment, and it's like, well, yes and no. Like, deployments are hard in itself. Like,
Yeah.
that's a whole other
There's a
beast
whole
of.
there's a whole
Yeah.
other emotional track that comes along with that, knowing that your service member is in
Yeah.
like a not safe zone or things like that. But I wanted to say one thing before I forget to say it, that if you're listening, Geo Batching is not for you, that's okay.
Yeah.
If it is for you, that is okay. Because like we preach this on the podcast. Every military family is different and every journey is different. And you have to take those aspects. We're actually in the talk of potentially living separately for a year for Geo Batching. This upcoming PCS, if he gets 2 jobs, he put 2 unaccompanied tours as his number ones and number 2 slots. And so we have that looming over us. And it's one of those things where I'm just like, I know for our family, having a year of set compared to 3 years is good. But at the same time, I'm dreading being solo for a year, especially like when that, they're not living a sucky life too. Like
that's what I was gonna add is like that's what the difference is with geo batching is like even like a TDY is that they also have friends. They're going out to dinner.
They're
like
going out, they're doing fun things.
Yeah.
Yes. And then you're stuck at home, especially if you have kids and you're just like in full single parent mode for a whole year and you don't have those breaks. And so that will, granted, like both in places that Jeremy would go to are not the safest locations right now, but at the same time, showing me 5-star resort that he would get to live at in the gorgeous pools and on, they had Eminem come to a concert like, a few months ago. And I'm just like, keep that up. And then let's see what happens, because I'm going to be like, okay, well, I'm taking the kids to do this. We're going to go to Disney and we're going to do this without you. If you're going to be doing these things, we're going to go do these things. But having those conversations and being, and I think you have to have a solid foundation to do geo batching, especially if it's going to be like really, really hard. And how long is that going to be? Like, are you choosing to just do geo batching for a year, 2, 3 years assignment? After this time we'll move together. Those are all conversations that you have to be open and honest about.
Yeah, and we preach communication over and over on our TikTok. But like it is so important to know exactly what everybody is thinking throughout the whole process of geo batching, for sure.
Well, and I think too, you brought up a good point. Like, resentment is a huge issue. Like, my husband and I had these conversations prior that I was like, if I'm staying here with the kids, and granted, now, personally, I am previously divorced, so my kids are with their biological father every other week, which is how I'm able and why it works for us. Like, this is not where it works for everybody. However, I was like, you get to take the dogs. Like, if I have to feed and handle the children, you get to feed and handle the dogs. Like, I will be so mad if you are living your best life in a house by yourself with all your friends, and I have 3 dogs and 2 kids by myself. Absolutely not. I will lose my ever-loving mind. And he was like, perfect. I don't want to be alone anyway, so I will happily take the dogs.
That's a great compromise. It's a great compromise. I also think like having those conversations of, hey, like when we're visiting, you're not just being like couch potato. Like, you are going to be stepping in and helping and things like that. And like, there needs to be an effort. Like, I think that's always, I feel like that's a lot of where a lot of military spouses have resentment, is because, they're like, oh, for the entire year, I have been handling this, and this. And then dad or mom comes home and it's still, I'm handling this, and this. And that resentment builds up. And so, like Sabrina said, communication is key, y'all. Like, you will not be successful in the military family sector if you do not have good communication.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're geo batching or not.
No matter what you're doing.
That whole process, I feel like deployments and geo batching in this case would be the hardest part, is the reintegration. Like, how do we re-become a family in the end too? Because it's like that communication of like, well, you've been used to these responsibilities, I've been used to this, like where do we meet in the middle? And it doesn't go easily. Like I know that is like definitely why it makes reintegration so hard, is because it doesn't really ever fall into place like you hope it will.
Well, I remember when my husband deployed, the squadron did reintegration like classes essentially when they were coming back. And so we have actually decided to start offering those services as well. So once we start having like more applicants and, people reaching out and all of these different things, we have support groups ready to go to have those reintegration classes so that you're not still doing everything by yourself and your service member is not coming back, and then there's this tension of, well, we've done it this way for us 5 years, like it's been 5 years of our way with me and the kids, and you have had your way for 5 years as a bachelor essentially. And so we want to offer those support services again. It's not just financial grants that we provide, it's the emotional side too, of like support groups, of getting on a Zoom and being like, this sucks, like this is the worst. And then other people being like, hey, we finally get to reintegrate next month. And, we're moving back and we're getting together. And it's like, great, here's what we're going to offer for that aspect too, because those are things that people also don't think about. And it's so crucial to be able to have those conversations too, of like, all right, this is going to be all new for us,
Yeah. Well, having those conversations and being able to voice that this sucks, and also accepting that, like, I think a lot of spouses will struggle with the fact, like, well, I should just be grateful that they're home. And they kind of push away their feelings and push away how they feel, or like, they don't want to say anything because they don't want to upset them and make them want to be like, oh, I wish I was still in deployment or whatever the case may be. And one, that's not healthy. First, you have to feel your feelings. It's okay to feel the feelings. It's okay to struggle with those feelings. But, again, communication is so important. And having those conversations with yourself and another person, whether it's your spouse or another person that you can feel that you can relate to, having those relationships with your spouse and say, hey, you're gonna have grace. You're gonna have to have grace too. Like, I have been doing this for so long. This is how I've handled it, and I understand that you want to come in. I think I always struggle when my husband comes home from a long training or deployment or something like that, and comes and tries to be like Punisher, like, you did bad. This is what's gonna happen. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, first off, we don't do that. We either do it this way, or, hey, that doesn't work. Like, that's not going to do anything. All that's going to do is just make him not like you. And I'm the one that's the punisher. You shouldn't be the one that's punishing too. Like, I feel like there always should be, like,
especially parents, not right when they first get back. They need that time to like rebond with their parents.
Exactly. So, there's always those conversations, and I feel like I always have to have that. Like, hey, I understand that you're wanting to come in and you want to be supportive, but this isn't supporting me right now. Let me handle this. I will let you handle it when it's at a, like, when I feel like you guys have reconnected, because you're right, like, if they haven't even had a chance to reconnect, that relationship is just not going to be the best. And so, and especially if you have a kid who's like ADHD or something, who's kind of a little bit more prone to being have a little bit more impulsiveness and things like that, emotions. That's like, my son does that. And like, we were just talking, like, he just had this huge big no where, he got in a lot of trouble, and thankfully my husband didn't come in after I'd already talked to my son, because he had already gone to work and I had already handled it. And I was like, hey, this is what we're doing. All you need to do is back me up on what I told him, like making sure he follows through with what I said his punishment is. And thankfully that worked out great. But like, I had to voice that, hey, this is what I'm doing. I did ask him, like, what do you think the punishment should be before I go talk to him? This is what I think it should be. And then if he doesn't do anything between this time and this time, then it's extended. And we agreed on that. And instead of just going, trying to be helpful when things are not helpful.
Yeah. Well, and one thing that like we've learned, so my husband and I, we try to do like quarterly therapy just to like check in with like a third party person, right? Because I feel like that is always helpful. And our therapist told us one time, and I have told all of our military friends this, because as spouses, we all appreciate our military members' job, right? Like, we're all grateful, they're taking care of us, they're working, they're providing. We might also be doing the same, but it's a love-hate relationship at times.
Yeah.
And so we have what's called vent container, and it is the best thing that has ever helped our marriage, because I will be like, you have to preface before you start, and you have to be like, vent container, and the spouse knows, okay, I don't get to try and fix it. I don't get to try and tell you what to do. I don't get to do really anything. You're taking the lead. And then I can be like, I hate your job right now, and your job is stupid, and all of these things, and I hate living apart. And I can just really complain and get all of my feelings out in a safe space where my husband knows I'm not attacking him. I'm not attacking his job. I'm not attacking his career. It's just the emotion of that time. And then, he's like, do you want a suggestion? Do you want help? What? And if I say no, he drops it. Like, that's that.
That's good.
And then
cool.
we
That's a good idea.
yeah, and then you close the vent container. So when you are done venting and when you're done, and sometimes it has led into some of the best conversations that we've had, because I'm like, yeah, I do want to hear your feedback. Like, tell me what's going on. And then once it's done, the person who opened the vent container has to then say, vent container closed. And that's that. Like, you don't get to bring it up. You don't get to hold it against the person.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Because
And so it's been really cool.
Like that, and I mean it to be that way. Like, I'm not attacking you. I'm just so overwhelmed. Like, Ashley knows we've been going through a lot of nonsense
Yeah.
in the last full year at this point. And I'm like, I am so upset about it. And it does come off as like, hey, I hate your career. I hate what we're doing. It's like, I don't hate you. And I know that you don't really get a choice in the matter.
And you don't get a choice in the matter. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
like, a lot of it is like, it's out of your control.
That context of like, hey, I want you to feel a little bit mad about it, but don't, like, I'm not trying to offend you, and I'm not trying to like, start a fight, but I need somebody to vent to, because it is like, it's very isolating.
Well, and I think that, like, I love the idea of that, because, like, you can say, hey, like, I just need a vent. Like, I don't need you to give me a solution at the moment. I don't need you to give me a comment, because that's my biggest thing is, like, I love my husband, y'all. I love him with every ounce of my being. But that man's facial expressions, boy, make me want to punch him at times.
Yeah.
I love him. I'm telling you, I love him. But there are times where I'll be like, I'm trying to vent, and I don't specifically say, I just need to vent, and I need you to hear how I'm feeling in this moment. And like, he'll just look at me like I'm stupid. And I'm like, I know this is just your face, but
yeah,
I know you can't change your face, but if you don't wipe that look off your face right now, which is like, one of our things is, I'm definitely an emotional person when it comes to like getting feelings and things out like that. I don't like to feel like I'm being judged, and a facial expression, whether it's meant or not, will trigger me. And so we typically, like, if there's something that I know that I really, really need to discuss with my husband, we will do it via email or text. So that way I can take a few minutes and I think we've talked about this before, where I'll like calmly write it down and say, hey, like, I need to express this, and this is an event, or this is something that's been bothering me for a while, and like, there may not be a solution, there may be a solution, but I need you to hear me. And I know that just over the it's been like almost 20 years that we've been together, that this has been like, I know that I can have the conversation with him, but if it's something that I know I'll be a little too emotional about, I will take a step back and say, I would like to talk about this in person, but I want to get my feelings out before we do. And I want you to hear it without judgment, anything like that, because I'm not judging you. And I'll make sure that I'm using like I statements and things like that, where if we're in the heat of a conversation, I may not throw those in, because once again, I'm looking at his beautifully stupid face. And it will sometimes it'll go all left field at times. And so figuring out communication style is so important too during this time. Like, if or finding a way that you can communicate, especially if you're geo batching or on a deployment or on a long cycle, is like, what is the best way? We can, something can be easily triggered. Like, you feel like that person's not actually listening to you when you're having a conversation. You're having a secondary conversation with someone in the background, and you're just like, hey, I'm just trying to tell you how my day is. And I'm a firm believer in schedule, like, especially when you're on a deployment, like scheduling a time where that there will not be any interruptions, no kids interrupting, no anything like that, whether it's texting, video chatting, messaging on any app. Having a scheduled time where that person's sole focus should be and only on you. So obviously if they're taking like 10 minutes to respond, they don't have your full attention, and then it's warranted, you can get upset. But having those moments is
and that's like what saved us. Like, everyone's always like, how do you guys do it? And I'm like, well, there's so many different things, right? But like, we have a call every single night. Like, it doesn't matter. There is a FaceTime call that we have every night. And sometimes, due to scheduling or he might be going on a short TDY or something like that, where it's like, okay, we have to adjust, but
Yeah.
it's never a cancellation. And I
I
think
love
that making that the priority of, we're not canceling this call, we're rescheduling it to earlier in the day. So what's my work schedule? When are you flying? When, all of these things, because it's what's going to get you through. If it's not, I remember some of those early deployment calls before communication was better. It was like friends were coming up and I was like, I'm going to strangle you if you don't just focus. You're deployed and this is our like 20-minute call with terrible Wi-Fi that I don't even get to see half the time. And then your friends are coming up. I'm like, I hate all of your friends. I am mad at you now. Like, this whole situation is terrible. And so we have come a long way since then to be like, okay, here's our call. And it's like, he'll be like, hey, can I call at 5? And I'm like, well, I have the kids. So, like, they're going to be around. It's not going to be an intentional call. And we're not going to have like that good conversation, even if it's 10 minutes, like, what's the intention behind it, I think also goes a long way, especially as females. We want our men to be like, oh, we really want to talk to you.
Yeah. Well,
But
even if you're not that way, I mean, you still want to be able to connect with your spouse and be able to tell each other about your day. Like, I know we've talked about this before too, because my husband, like, he's such an introverted, like, when it comes to like, how's your day? And it's just a shrug. And I'm just like, no. We've talked about this. Like, you have to give me words. Did you eat lunch today? No. I'm like, well, why not? Like, I feel like I'm talking to elementary school kid, but I'm just making fun of him. Y'all know he's like, it's the same thing I do every day, and I get it. But I'm like, at the same time, I still want you to know that I care enough to want to know about how your day went. Did anything interesting happen? All those kind of things. But
well, and I think too, like, it's so interesting. Like, my husband and I have the conversation all the time of like, this is the only interaction we have during the day. Like, especially with us geo batching, like, you see your friends obviously way more than you see me. So our 1 hour call is all I get to know about your day. And so when you answer that question, and because my husband's the same way, I'll be like, how was your day? He'll be like, good. And I'm like,
it must be a boy thing. My goodness.
It must be. I'm gonna just give me a little more. Like, I don't understand.
I was like, after 20 years, like, I'm asking you because I want to have a conversation. You should know that I'm not just asking to ask. Like, I want to have a meaningful conversation. If you don't want to talk about your day, then you come up with something to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think too, like, that's where it comes, again, the intention behind it. Like, they want to talk to us, deep down, we all know that. Like, they also miss us, and they want, whether they're on a deployment or a TDY or whatever it is, they want to talk to us, but they've also had long days and exhausting. It's the same thing over and over. And I'm like, that's cool. But now it's your turn to pick the topic then, like, you get to ask all the questions, or, and my husband, we have also since learned, like, last night, I was dying of exhaustion. And I was just like, I am not in a talkative mood, but I miss you. And he was like, great, I'll handle it. And we had a conversation, but he knew going into it that I was not going to be like, hey, how are you? How was your day? What did you do? Like, all the things, because I was dead. And so again, that's several years of doing this geo batching and phone calls and lots of communication. But I think too, like, just having those little moments of like, I just want to talk to you. Like, this is our 1 hour a day. I just, like, even if we sit in silence sometimes, like, that's okay. I just miss.
We've watched shows together. Like, we've watched shows together where we've like, oh my God, like, he probably hates this because I do this at home too. So it's not like it would be anything normal. Like, I'll miss him and be like, wait, what happened? He's like, what happened? But like, we were watching something the other night and he's like, good gracious, you're the worst person to watch something with. I was like, sorry. I was like, I missed like 2 seconds of something.
Yeah.
But, like you said, like, having the intentions, having somebody who is going to have your back, but like, at this, like, each having grace. Like, I think that's so important. Like, having grace, like, if someone has a bad day, like, not getting upset that they're not talkative and vice versa. Because, as much as they may tell us stuff, they're not always going to tell us everything that happens, or like if they had a bad run-in with 70, things like that. Like, I think that was one of our eye-opening experiences as a military couple, was during one of my husband's deployments. His first deployment didn't talk really all that much about what he was going through, things like that. And then more because he thought I couldn't handle it. And I'm like, look, I'm a big girl. I've
Mhm.
told you that if you need to share it, you can share it. If you don't want to share it, that's fine. That is up to you. But I am here as your spouse, as your best
Mhm.
friend, as a person. I have no idea what you're going through. I never served. I can only speculate what your feelings are and what you're going through, but I can at least be here to listen so you can vent about it. And so his second deployment was a lot better. I mean, both of them were during the mid to late 2000s. And so there's still kind of like a lot of stuff happening. And so his second deployment was so much better. And then so we took from that, and that kind of helped our long distance communication was,
Mhm.
being open and honest, even if it's ugly and true, and then making sure that, if I had a conversation that, really worried me or anything like that, that I had someone to go talk to
Mhm.
afterwards to help
Mhm.
be like, calm me down, bring me down. After 20 years of being in a military spouse style, I guess I've only been a military spouse for 15, but being together for so long that, everything's out of our controls. And the only thing we can do is be there to support our spouses. And
Mhm.
almost everything's out of their control too. So having the grace
Yeah.
and understanding that, one, they may not be able to tell you everything. And two, you may not like what you hear
Mhm.
at the same time. So, having, again, those open conversations about what you are capable of hearing, what you're not capable of hearing, and then, not being resentful, especially if they're on like a TDY where they get to go golfing all day
Yeah.
long
My
and
gosh.
live by the pool and drink, or if they're geo batching and they're getting to go do all these things that they normally wouldn't do because they're at home helping you with the kids and they
Mhm.
get to go do other things. And I get it. Trust me, even though I'm preparing myself for it, I still know I will have those moments of, I hate your job. I really don't
Mhm.
like your face at the moment because you're choosing to do these things
Yeah.
and not be miserable like I am.
Mhm.
And not that I want him to be miserable. I want him to be able to go experience these things. I want him to go do that. But at the same time, we're human and we're going to
Yeah.
have those emotions, y'all.
Yeah.
And
And this kind of comes full back around to kind of what you're doing with your nonprofit. So I was gonna
Mhm.
say, can you explain a little bit more like how people can like get involved and like what it is that you guys are needing as a nonprofit?
Yeah, so we officially launched in August of 24. So we are still brand new. We're baby nonprofits. So we took,
Your baby for a good solid like 10 years. Come to find out.
yeah, so we took August to December to really just kind of like grow our platforms, make sure, websites and all of that. So we didn't do any like real hardcore promotion. It was just kind of laying the groundwork to make sure that we had a solid foundation, getting a good board together and, people on the board who understood the mission. And, some are military, some are previous military. So like they got it, they get it, they understand it. So this year, our biggest one is fundraising right now. So we hit the ground running. We have our first 5K on Saturday, and I'm so excited. So we're doing a virtual 5K where people can run together while apart. So it kind of is an activity that you can do with your loved one, whether you're physically together or not. You can go on this run together, FaceTime, talk on the phone, call each other after, whatever, but it's an activity to do together. So that's been our first big fundraiser and it's been pretty successful. I'm actually surprised at how much we've raised so far. But yeah, so we are looking for volunteers at different bases. It doesn't matter what branch you are, but just to help us kind of be that ambassador to get the word out to, your family support squadron person because every branch is a little bit different. My husband's Air Force, so obviously we know the Air Force world very well,
Mhm.
but other ones I'm like I don't know who to reach out to, so having people that are, across the different bases is extremely helpful. And then sharing right now, like sharing a post, sharing the word about what we're doing has also been a huge help for us. And then we just launched corporate sponsorships. So we're really excited about that one to, start reaching out to some of these companies who we know support, military organizations or whatever to be partners with us.
mhm.
And, there's so many different things that they can do. They can, support monthly, yearly. They can fund a family, which is a fun thing that I think is really cool. You can fund the travel of one of our applicants. And so our applications aren't live yet because we don't want to give false hope when we're still raising the funds to
Yeah.
do so. But we're almost there. Actually, the plan was to launch applications in August, and I think with this 5K and the tractions we've gotten, we might be able to launch a little earlier, which is
Oh,
really
that's
cool.
exciting.
Yeah, so we're still saying August, but also I'm like, ooh, maybe sooner, everybody. So yeah, and so at that point we'll have a selection committee. You can apply, you can make sure, it'll be a very, not a rigorous, but we want to know the details, right? Like,
right.
Why are you geobatching? How, sort of how can you prove you're geobatching? Things like that, because we don't want this to go to people who don't necessarily need it. This is to help. Flights are so expensive,
They're
y'all.
so
Like,
bad.
oh my gosh, from when we started, again, so it was March of 2022 where we started this process, and I was able to fly every other week, and we were able to, like, fund it, and it was great. I now drive 10 hours every other week because it is so expensive to fly. And yeah, it's cheaper, but then, there's all the back end of, well, I need new tires sooner, or I need an oil change sooner, or all of those things. And so our grant will help with those things as well. So if you are driving, and you pop a tire, or, you need the gas money, or whatever it is, a bus fare, train, plane, whatever, this application will help with that. And then we'll work with you to book everything. And then, we'll cover the cost up to a certain amount. And again, it kind of goes through the selection committee so we can make sure everything's legit on both sides. But yeah, so, really just spreading the word right now is like our biggest push. Like, we are looking for partners to work with, like you guys. There's a few other organizations that have been awesome coming in, being like, hey, you're brand new, like, let's chat, let's help you out. And I'm like, okay,
And
yay.
that's what I love about the military community, because like, especially if it's a military organization who is promoting other organizations, because we, as military organizations, as military spouses, we know all the different things that we need supported. And why not support other people? Like, I'm so excited for this. I have a quick question though.
Yeah.
Is it only continental? Like, will you be able to do like overseas and stuff like that?
Yep.
So
yeah, so we might not be able to pay for, the full flight, right? Like, depending on when. But yeah, like, even if it's half of the ticket or something like that. And that's where, we want you to put, when you apply, put the full amount. And if we can, we will, but if we have a big uptake in applications and there's 4 families and we're trying to connect them all, it might be less, but at least it's something, like,
something that's
like,
all that matters.
It's better than nothing, especially this day and age with eggs being, $10 a carton. Like,
I think this is a great resource because, like, I've known so many different spouses who have geobatch who they don't go see because, one, they can't afford to. They can't afford to go drive the 10 hours. They don't have the flexibility to do that because they're working or their kids' schedules and things like that. But then dad or mom doesn't have the option of driving home. You see a lot of times that the service member comes home because it's cheaper to pay for one than multiple. And that's, great if you can do that. But at the same time, I don't know, like, sometimes you want to go see where your spouse is living and things like that.
Well, and we'll cover the cost too of the service member, because we also realize, like, for me, again, I have a great job right now that allows the flexibility, and they understand our situation and all of that. So it's great. Not everyone has that. Like, I am fully aware of that, and if you're working at Target to make ends meet, like, great for you. I'm so proud of you for doing that to feed your family. But you might not have enough PTO, or you might not have the ability to take off, because losing that pay is a dinner or, a fun thing for your kid. And so the service members typically speaking, have more time off. And so we will also pay for them to come down to see you as well, And so, yeah, it's, just kind of the give and take of, like, okay, do you want to go up and see them? Do you want them to come see you? Like, how do you want this to work?
That's the most important at that time, like, seeing each other for, seeing each other's important. So, like, coming home, that kind of stuff. Ugh, I love it. I wasn't until we brought you on the podcast, I was like, you're right. There is not a resource to help. Like, you may be able to reach out to other organizations and they may be able to help here and there, but like, there's not one specific place to go to help with this specific topic.
Well, and our our website, I'm still working on it, so it's not quite ready, but it will be soon. We're going to have a resource page, and it also offers other nonprofits. Like there's a childcare nonprofit that has, I can't remember how many bases they're like partnered with, but for when you PCS and then your spouse goes deployment 2 weeks later and you're like, great, I'm unpacking, I'm moving, I'm getting adjusted. What do I do with my kids during the day?
Yep.
There's a whole other organization that I had no idea about that is there for that purpose, that is like background checked, military approved, allowed on base to come help with your kids. And I'm like, that's something that also people don't know about, you know, and
No,
it's
there's so many things out there
yeah.
that spouse. I mean, even me and Sabrina, who have been in the military, like, I've got 36 years of military experience, y'all. I grew up military, and I'm still learning about new organizations every week, y'all, and it blows my mind. And I love that you said you're doing a resource page. We also are in the process of trying to create a resource page as well over on Deployed Love, because the more knowledge that's out there, the more support we can give military families, the more successful military families will be, and the more supportive they're going to feel. And I think that's just, I love that. I love
and two, I think too, like there's a lot out there, right? Like when I was doing research on this, there's a lot of misinformation as well. Like there's technically, I guess, a form that's been going around, and they say it's for the Army, Navy, and Air Force, and you can fill it out and get additional financing if you're geo batching. That is not true. Like it's on multiple blogs, it's on multiple websites, and I'm like, that is such a bummer. You know, like that is so hard to see, because you get your hopes up, like, even $100 extra. Yeah. And then it's nothing, you know? And so I'm hoping our resource page obviously will be dedicated to, like, we have travel deals, we have hotel partnerships, we have, you know, certain things like that, that if you're not even using our services and grants, you can still go to our site and be like, hey, this hotel is partnered with military and we can get a great discount, or there's a free cruise out of Florida that you can use as a military member, and maybe you guys go and do that, you know, like, so there's so many different things out there that just,
I think like having a safe space, a space that, you know, like the information has been vetted and it is correct, is so important. Because like you said, I mean, I've personally have found things that are not legit, not true, or you start to look into them, dig into them a little bit more. You spend all this time, and we don't have the time, y'all. Like we all know, we don't have the extra time to do all the research. Having it in one space or multiple spaces, and whether it's like our page or your page, and there's a couple other organizations that I know that are currently doing this, because it's coming very apparent that there's a plethora of things out there that people don't know about, as well as a lot of things that are not true, because I mean, the military community is unfortunately an easy target when it comes to like, hey, free this, but then there's all these stipulations and things like that. So having a safe space that's vetted, and families can go to and go like, oh, I know this organization, they've vetted it, they've looked through all the information, they have found it to be legit, I know I can get this, I'm going to go with this.
Well, something we've learned from the podcast is a lot of these resources that we may know provide more things than you would expect they do. So like upfront Fisher House looks like, hey, we just provide a place for you to stay during medical emergencies. But there is so much more once we talk to them. Like they have scholarships, they have grants, they have like all these things that you don't see that from their front page or from what you hear from the military, what they tell you. And so I think that our resource page, we have that opportunity from having them on the show where we can be like, but this is also what they do. And there's so many cool things, because even with Deployed Love, like people see that and they're like, oh, well, they just do deployments. But there's so many.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but there's so much more to it. And, you know, and as programs, I mean, especially programs who have been around years and years and years. I mean, we just had the USO on, and I mean, they've been around since 1941, and they consistently change their programs too. Like when I typically think of the USO, I'm typically thinking, oh, it's resources for service members.
I think airport. That's about it.
Like airport, you know, concerts, things like that, that are typically geared towards the service member, but they do so much for the families too. I found out that they do dog therapy at a lot of their installations. See, I was like, you could just come in and pet. I was like, I can just come in and pet puppies. Where has it been? Like, I could use a dopamine kit. Like, be like, why is this not talked about more? You know,
Sure.
they have a gaming like club where, like a lot of people like book clubs, but I have come to find out that there are so many military spouses who are huge gamers. It's not my cup of tea. I've never been a gamer. My sister has been, but knowing that there's like a whole like huge demographic of spouses who like will connect with other military spouses through gaming games. I didn't know that, but they offer like a safe space where, hey, like it's all military spouses or veterans playing this game. Like, it's a, come join the team, come do the tournament, things like that. And I'm like, that is so fun. And like having like, we were talking about like having the space where we can list these, whether it's for veteran, whether it's spouses, whether it's for a child, they're all there. I'm hoping more of our resources are also realizing this and also supporting other military like organizations. And there are some organizations out there that I feel like it's competition, but that's not, at least us at Deployed Love, it's not a competition. If we can support and love on a military family, and if that is just by providing them resources, then we have done our job. So
well, and there's so much out there. Like, it's crazy to me when you do interact with somebody and it comes off as like it's a competition. I'm like, dude, I don't even do the same thing as you. You know,
exactly.
like,
or even if we do the same thing, even if you do the same thing, there are so many spouses out there that there's no way that your organization can get to every single one of them and provide them the support that they need. We know, I personally know that I will not be able to support every single military spouse, whether it is they don't feel like they have a connection with the organization or to the coordinators or to, even the podcast, and they were just like, I just don't vibe with them. That's cool. That's fine. I hope that you can find the resource out there that benefits you and helps you in some way.
Yeah, because we're not going to be a good fit for everyone. Like you were just saying, book club versus game club. Like that's a whole huge difference in people. We can't support everybody. Like we aren't all the same people.
Well, and I feel like organizations out there try to do that, but then you lose people because there is no personal connection, So like for me as a military spouse, I want to feel the personal connection. I want to be able to talk to somebody and be like, wow, we went through the same thing.
And you might be corporate. You don't want it to feel corporate. Like, like I said, I love the USO, but there are times I've gone to events where it's very corporately like we have to get through this spill. We have to say this. We have to do this. Whereas you never know what you're going to get when you come to a Deployed Love event. We may talk about just mom stuff one day. If we're all moms, it could be we are doing an event about military life, or we could talk about books. We could talk about crafts. We could there is always going to be someone that you could probably connect with. But in essence, you're going to know that you're going to have somebody who is there just to listen to whatever you need. And I think that's one of the reasons why we continue to do what we're doing, because we know that there just needs to be a safe space for military spouses to have a moment where they don't feel judged. They're not being judged by their husband's rank or job or their status, like, income status or anything like that. Like none of that is going to be talked about unless you want to bring that up at a coffee meetup or something like that. And I think there's a lot of places like, a lot of military spouses, if they don't want anything to do with FRGs or key spouses or whatever it may be called in your branch, having an organization that you can talk to for support, whether you are Geo Batching and you're talking to Chelsea, or you are just a military spouse who says, I know I need a military trip, or I know I need someone in the military that I can call and say, hey, do you know where I can find this information? Or can you listen for 2 minutes? Having those spaces and knowing that it's safe. And non-judgmental is what I think a lot of military spouses need, even if they don't think they need it. Because there's so many out there. There's so many out there where like, it's my husband's job. I don't want anything to do with it. But I was like, I get it.
But it's still going to affect your life.
But it's all,
it will uproot your life so many times. I mean, and if you are a military spouse, kudos. I mean, if you're a military spouse who wants something to do this, you're probably not listening to our podcast.
You're not here.
Kudos to you. I'm glad that you can figure things out on your own. I would love to know your secrets, because no matter how many times where I'm like, I can do this by myself. And I'm like, no, I can't. No, I can't.
Nope.
And that's the last part of like what you do within your new organization, is that supporting people going through the same thing. So like, how is that going to work within the Family in Flight?
So the goal is to have like monthly Zoom calls for people who are in this position so that we can get on and have that conversation because as we've talked about on this podcast, geobatching looks different for everyone, right?
Mhm.
Like there's always a different reason. There's always, all the differences are what makes us all unique, but we can all still come together. And it, again, with there not being much support out there with it, that's one of the things that we want to do. We want to launch, hopefully sooner rather than later once we continue getting the word out about us and, pushing our name out and finding more and more people who are in this position and to be able to have those support groups because you need it. Like even if
Mhm.
you want nothing to do with your military member's job and they
Yep.
geobatch because you have your own career, there's still going to be some hiccups and you might join once, you might join every time. It doesn't matter to us. Even if we have one person on that call, we get to make a difference in that one person's life and they
Yes.
know, hey, we're here. Like and that's what I want, like overarching. I want people to know we are here. We are listening, we understand. I've been doing this for 3 years. We got 2.5 left. And even after that, just because we're done doesn't mean that the organization is done. Like, just because I'm done doesn't mean that everybody else is done in this journey. Somebody could be just starting, and hopefully by year 5, and which would be year 3 of this, I guess, we're well known, and everybody's like, hey, go to them and they can help out. And like that's the goal, is to be the support. Ooh, whether it's financial or whether it's emotional, we want to be there for everybody to help out because I wish I had that 3 years ago.
Yeah. And I feel like that's where so many things come. Like all these organizations are coming from military spouses who have gone, or service members who have gone through something where they're just like, this was not met in some form of capacity. And so they're creating these. I mean, that's why Sabrina started Deployed Love. That's why we continue to do all the different things and created these different programs, is because yes, there are organizations out there that do things, but like whether it's consistent enough or if it's at that location, if it's virtual, if it's not, like they're there to support you. So I like, again, like military spouses, like if you're listening, if you're a service member, you're a family member, encourage your spouses to connect. Encourage your service members to connect. Like if you have a service member who's still not connecting, like they're still part of the military community. I mean, that's why we're in the military community, but like they need support too. And if they feel like they're not connecting, if they need to join a book club through a spouse group,
Why not?
why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah.
Like if you haven't found what you're looking for, I mean, I'm not going to turn someone away because they're a service member. We include moms and siblings and things like that. Like if we have someone says, hey, like I'm a mom, my service member is, so many old, I don't have any connection. I love that you guys will include us because no one else will.
Yeah.
And that just makes my heart sing because I'm like, every member in the family unit needs support in some way. Not just spouses, not just kids, moms, dads, siblings, grandparents, like, and so I'm just here for it. I'm so glad that you have decided that this is a need. There needs to be a safe space and working towards doing that. I can't wait. I hope that you continue to share your stuff with us at Deployed Love.
Yeah.
Share it in our Hearts Connect group where we can continue to share the resource, but also like, it is a different, like, I remember talking to my mother-in-law. She goes, well, I don't really understand what you're going through because we geobatched, and like it was very different. Like I didn't have this up and down constant rotation of like he's in the field and he's home and he's in the field. He was gone all the time and he was home maybe once a month. And so it is a different lifestyle and there is different support needs. So I love it. And I'm so excited to see where you guys go.
Thanks. I'm so excited that you guys had me on. This is so exciting, and just kind of be able to, again, partner with you guys and get the story out there. We've been following you for a little bit online, and so it's been fun that like, oh my gosh, now we get to actually chat.
I love it.
Yeah. So we like to end our episode by asking, obviously, as a military spouse, what would be your one key advice? And we'll go ahead and just put it towards geobashing spouses for a new spouse that may be getting into what is the life of geobashing.
I would say to be intentional with all your conversations, how you're responding to each other, the communication like we talked about previously, and doing therapy once a quarter. There is nothing wrong with therapy, and you don't have to be in crisis to do therapy. Sometimes it's a lot easier to do it when you're not in crisis to then avoid the crisis.
And a referral, y'all. You can
Yeah,
go to any
you don't.
therapist that you want. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, as long as they take the insurance, but like,
Yeah.
you do not need a referral for this one. You do not need
Nope.
permission from your doctor, your service member's doctor. You
Nope.
can just go.
Yep.
There's some great
And you can
resources
pay out of
that
pocket
cover that,
too.
like military ones, or some of that can be free too. So might
Yeah,
as well.
and there's organizations out there that are just providing that too. So like,
Yep.
if you, I know a lot of service members are always kind of like, well, I don't want to go to therapy for
Hesitant,
whatever
yeah.
reason, because whatever the case may be, or they're doesn't fit in their schedule or things like that. So just taking that time to have that intentional conversation,
Yep.
it will be really important, especially when you're in a state where you probably do need that one person say like, well, let's talk about these feelings this way. This person's feeling this way. This person's feeling this way. I think that's great advice. I think that's great advice for anybody in the military anyways. To do therapy sessions, especially if there are some tensions and some resentment and some feelings happening, whether you're geo batching or not, y'all. But again, you guys do what is best for your units, because we're all different. You may not need it. You guys may have a great communication style, and
it works for you, which is great.
Share those with our friends, y'all. Sharing is caring. But we are so happy that you came on, Chelsea, and we cannot wait to see where your organization goes. And maybe we'll be in the near future.
We're here for you. We're here for you. Support.
Thank you. But it is one of those things where you guys community is important. Find your community, whether it is virtual or in person, and just, literally our podcast name, like, Rock Up Babe, like, you got this, you can handle anything that is thrown at you, but having that support system, having someone cheer you from the sidelines will make your journey so much better.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, all of Chelsea's information and everything about Family in Flight is going to be in the show notes, of course, so you guys can find it there. And again, we are adding a resource page, so it'll be up pretty soon with her information on there as well. So if you guys are looking for Chelsea, you can reach out to her as well. Thank you guys for joining us today, and we will be back with another episode soon. And as we like to say, rock up, Buttercup.
Bye, everybody.